Hello.
We're
My
back.
God, we are back to another conversation. I am excited about this one. Not really. No, but it's a good conversation. So the title is Bare and Brave, the Pain and the Beauty of Vulnerability. I like to say Anastasia's the vulnerability queen. She models it so well, and we're going to get into why I say that. But Anastasia, take a like just come on, take off, take us there. You are, I'll say this in all seriousness, all jokes aside, you are such an incredible example of what healthy vulnerability looks like. And I've watched you just grow so much in freedom. And I believe a big piece of that is because you said yes to vulnerability. And so why
Yeah.
don't you tell me what vulnerability is and what it means, the risk of the risks of vulnerability, but also the beauty and why vulnerability you would say is so worth it.
You know, I found my weapon.
Oh my gosh, wow, this got violent real fast. She's
It's
gonna come after you.
some people, want to guard themselves, and I kind of do the opposite. I think vulnerability is risque, it's dangerous, it's you don't know where it's going to land you, but it's the greatest gift we can give someone.
Wow.
And I think to me, vulnerability is connected directly to the heart.
Hmm.
And I think in our vulnerability is our heart. The way we open our heart, the way we are open. I don't think vulnerability is just about sharing really honest information about yourself. I think some people would mistake in transparency and vulnerability, because transparency is really being, open and honest and sharing information that's honest. I think vulnerability is different because it touches on the strings of the heart. it's
Yes.
uh it's a very emotional part of who we are, and it requires courage to open
Yeah.
up my heart to you, Bethany, about something that I might feel uncomfortable will require courage. And to me, that is vulnerability. And I think because vulnerability is so costly, when you build with vulnerability in relationships, you develop greater intimacy. And
Yeah.
I think it's a great example of our friendship, which is very beautiful to have this conversation with you, because I think it's something that let's be real, it hasn't always been that way for me. I think I was always good at being there for people. I was always good at maybe getting things out of people, meaning, you know, asking them how they were, but I wasn't always good about sharing what was in my heart. I think
Yeah.
for a long time. I mean, you've known me over the decades, and you know the difference of who I
Yes.
am today versus who I was, like, 15 years ago. And I think the difference was that when I went, we're going to touch a lot on this, but the idea of discipleship and saying yes to Jesus and saying yes to growth, to freedom, to healing is a vulnerable journey. It's
Yeah.
actually go after things in your heart that make you weak, and that may, sometimes I think the most weakest people are the ones that look the strongest on the outside, are the
Yeah.
ones
Wow.
that powerful on the outside. But actually, I look at some of those, people oftentimes. I actually looked at someone recently, like it was a complete stranger. I was watching an interaction, and I looked at this really big, strong, angry man, and I just saw a hurting little boy. And I
Wow.
think so often, because we learn the coping mechanisms of how to keep ourselves guarded and
Yep.
protected, because essentially we want to protect our heart, we want to guard our heart, but we do it incorrectly. And
Hmm.
so I think vulnerability is such an important conversation to have, because in a world where people pick up their phones and just like blast, just are get vulnerable, quote unquote, about their life or about what they're going through. To me, I would say, like, I'm gonna make a difference of what it's not to just like put your life on blast and tell the whole world about
Sure.
what you're going. Okay.
Yeah.
To me, the idea of why we want to go specifically after this conversation with vulnerability is the idea of learning to open up your heart in a way that's going to cost
Mm,
you something. And
right,
so
right.
it requires risk, and it requires trust, and we all very often don't know what's going to meet us on the other side.
Right.
And I there have been many moments in my life where it took a lot of risk, it took a lot of courage, but because I risked enough, I was able to realize, wow, this is actually worth it. I
Yeah.
care about the relationship enough to keep opening up my heart. I even remember, like, in my relationship with you and Simon, like, I've come to you guys and just been like, here's my heart, guys. Like, here's what's really going on. Not
Yes.
knowing if you accept me on the other side of this conversation, but I would rather risk and be fully me and have you reject the real me than be accepted for the fake me.
Wow, come
And
on.
this
Get
is
rid of
why
the fake. Take the
this
mask off.
so important. Bethany, I know how much you value authenticity. And I think
Yes.
so cool to grow in our friendship and see, I think I'm relating vulnerability right now in friendship a lot, but I think it's in any relationship.
Yeah.
It's employee, a pastor, a member of a church. Like, there's so many different aspects relationships that we can actually open up our heart and be the
Yes.
version of ourselves. And so I
Yeah.
love that. To me, like that, I think maturity is going back to be childlike.
Mm,
It's learning how to be like a child again. And in the kingdom of God, things tend to operate backwards, although I think that's actually the right way, because
yeah.
as we mature, as we grow, we actually become, more vulnerable. I love that. My 4-year-old Emmy, she's gonna be like, Mommy, you hurt my heart. I'm so sad. Like, she'll just tell me how she feels. I
Yeah.
think that's so beautiful. Like, what if we were to communicate more honestly from our heart than,
Yes.
you know, even slap a scripture on it and, pretend everything is right. And
Yeah.
so I think that for me, a huge part of how the Lord started to unravel that was the way I lead. Like,
Mm,
I have resolved that as long as I am going to be a vulnerable leader, meaning I'm going to keep opening up my heart and I'm going to show people who I am, I want people to see the real me. So maybe in seeing the real me, they see Christ in me and they're actually becoming like Jesus because I'm being the real me, if that
right.
makes sense.
Yeah, it does make sense.
Yeah, I mean, this conversation can go so many ways. I do want
Yeah.
to actually ask you, because I know for you, it was risky, even to some degree, opening up your heart to me. I know we've had a relationship that was, built on good times and humor and fun and deep conversations, but there was a level of like, whoa,
Protection.
yeah, exactly. Whoa, like, we're not gonna like really go to the depths of our
Sure.
hearts.
Sure.
And I think this is probably even more of a fresh thing in our friendship. So maybe you can actually share, like,
Yeah.
how I maybe broke some doors down to go after your heart, because it's my favorite thing to do.
Yeah, yeah. You love it. It's your favorite thing. Which it's one of my favorite things about you that you go after truth and honesty. But I want to touch on something you said, just even how you lead. You lead from a vulnerable place, like you model vulnerability. And I fully believe that the greatest leaders are the most vulnerable ones. I think there is a lie that we can tend to believe that vulnerability equals weakness, when vulnerability actually equals strength, because it's when we're confident in who we are in the Lord, we're not afraid of being honest and real about where we are. It's when we're trying to prove ourselves and and put this facade on that I'm great, I'm mature, I can do everything. No, I'm strong. No, it didn't bother me. It's fine, because we believe that if we say no, it's not fine, or that did bother me, then man, I just must be so sensitive and weak. No, you're called a human and you have a heart, and you have a mind and will and emotions. And I am just a firm believer, we have got to make vulnerability popular, and we've got to model it well. And I think the reason why vulnerability is so scary to a lot of people is because it hasn't been modeled well to them. And what I have learned with this, just even in this past year in my relationship with you, you have pulled me down deeper in vulnerability, whether I asked for it or not. You forced me there, and I'm so grateful for that. But just what I've realized is without vulnerability, you can't have a real relationship. It's just not going to be really real. It's going to be surfaced. And until you go there, you will not discover the beauty of a real, genuine relationship where you are tied together, where you don't give up on each other, when you create this safe space of honesty. And there's something about vulnerability that just knits you together in such a deep way. And I'm like, look at Jesus. How vulnerable of a man was he? And he modeled it well for us. He modeled it so well to his disciples, Peter, knowing he was going to deny him, but he never gave up. He allowed them to be honest. He allowed them to ask questions, and he walked with them. And he said, I'm with you always, even till the end of the age. And to me, it's like that. He's modeled it well in the hard times, in the good times. We don't leave each other, and we stand strong, and we create this space where we can come and pour out our heart, and we're going to talk through it, but I'm not going to shut you down. And I think there's been a lot of experiences for people where they were shut down when they were vulnerable. And so a wall came up over their heart, and they're like, never again. But yet they come across like they're vulnerable and like, oh, I'm great. And I'm good when you're going home crying in your room alone because you feel so lonely, but you don't want to tell anyone because you're like, they're going to think I'm needy. Who told you that trash? Like, why does that make you needy? That you want to be loved, that you want to be known? No, God put that in us. So let's face the reality of how God made us. God made us to feel. God made us to need one another. God made us to need Him. God made us to be honest. And that's where we find freedom. And vulnerability is where you find a deeper freedom that can only come through that. And so, back to what you said, I feel like JD Vance right now. I'm going to answer you, but before I do, I'm going to comment on this, and we're going to get back to that. Love you, JD Vance. You're amazing. But no, I remember. So we know the story. This is when it was like the moment where we just went deeper. We had known each other for, at that time, 13 years, now 14 years. And we've been friends for a long time, but never deep friends, And when I say deep, I mean, I feel safe. That's what I mean. And to me, that's a gift that can only be given to you. You can't make anyone make you safe. They have to choose to be a safe place for you. And I personally, to be honest, didn't experience a lot of uh, good experiences with feeling like vulnerability was safe. I had a wall over my heart because I was shut down, rejected. A lot of times when I was honest, it didn't go well. So what did we do? I'm not going to share my feelings anymore. I'm just going to say I'm fine when I'm actually not. And that's not healthy. And so you invited me to your retreat, which was so amazing. And this retreat, we spent most of the time just worshiping and prophesying over each other. It was a leadership retreat, and we were there. I knew a couple people there, but we just started prophesying, and I don't know what happened, but I just kind of just started to love on people and be led by the Spirit and share the words that I felt the Lord was giving me. And by the third day, I remember it was the last prophecy that I was giving to our dear friend Margaret, and I was weeping over her, and I remember even saying, God, give her the desires of her heart for me. And like, it sounds so emotional and deep. And when I was done prophesying over her and I'm weeping, it was immediate vulnerability regret, like immediate regret, feeling like I just literally poured out my greatest pearls and they will be stomped on, even though these are like, Margaret's one of my best friends in the world, and since then you and I have gotten a lot closer, and it's like I still felt like I couldn't be safe. And so what did I do? I go to my room, I start packing my bag, and I'm thinking like, I'm out of here, man. Forget these people. They're going to use and abuse. peace out, sister. And I'm even in my room, like packing my bag, because that was an action I could do that just helped me calm my nerves, because it was representing running away. And I'm like, yes, get me out of here. I'm calling an Uber. And but I'm even thinking, like, what is wrong with me? Like, what is going on? Why am I responding this way after we've had the most beautiful 3 days? Long story short, I'm laying in my bed and I was leaning toward just not sharing anything and going home and being like, that was a great time. Thanks so much for having me. I'll see you next time. And then you and Margaret come in and we end up having this conversation. And I decided in that moment, I'm going to be vulnerable. And they're either going to reject me and say I'm high maintenance and too sensitive, or they're going to respond well. And I just haven't had a lot of experiences where I experienced that responding well.
Mm,
And you, friend, we had such an honest conversation. You were asking me deep questions. And as I answered them, you helped me process, both you and Margaret. And it was like, what is this? What, how am I feeling? This just is going really well. And I can remember the next day you came to me and you just hugged me. And we know that physical touch is not my top love language, but you just like squeezed me and you're like, I just feel so much closer to you since you shared your heart. And I'm like, you do? And since then, of course, we laugh about it, but that's kind of vulnerability is what our friendship is really built on. I really believe that. And which is why I think we feel safe for the most part. I'm still, to be honest, I'm still growing in this because I think when you live so long with these habits of holding things in and not sharing, you have to choose to say yes to being open and honest. And I've had moments with you where I'm like, okay, I'm going to go ask her about that when I usually wouldn't, because I'm like, just don't be sensitive, Bethany. But it's not. We can just get in our heads and decide that people are not going to like us if we're real and if we're honest and if we say, hey, that hurt my feelings or whatever it was. I know recently I asked you a question about something and you came later and said, hey, I'm really sorry about that. I could see how it came across a certain way. And I'm like, oh, it's okay. And you're like, no, it's not okay. Tell me it's not okay. And I'm like, I don't know what to say. And I remember being like, well, actually, I don't know if I think it's not okay, but I'll tell you if it's not okay. And I think we have to practice vulnerability with each other because it creates real relationships, the relationships that God intended for us. And we're called to be vulnerable with the Lord, open and honest, because there's no deceiving God. He knows us more than he knows ourselves. And then we're called to be open and vulnerable
yeah.
with man. And so what do you think about that? Like what advice would you give to someone that just feels like there's a wall over their heart, or maybe they've bought into the lie that if I'm real and I'm open and honest, I'm going to get rejected, or even the balance of when to not be vulnerable and when to be vulnerable. Like what does that look like? What does healthy vulnerability look like for those who want to grow in this?
You know what's interesting? I think just in general in the church, we love the four-letter F word called fine.
I thought this was gonna go downhill real fast. Okay, I was like, there's children around it.
Telling you, we have so adopted this fakeness
Wow.
of,
Go there, girl.
and I don't like it.
Yeah.
And because I think the reason why I don't like it is that I'm fine to repent for something that I even unintentionally did. But when someone says, no, it's fine, I'm like, that's why, I go back and I have to say, hey, it wasn't fine. Like, I wasn't trying to hurt you, it wasn't intentional, but I know how it came across, or whatever the mistake is. I
Yeah.
think we're so quick to, I don't know if it's just this false idea that we have that we're making each other feel better, but
Right.
I think I love that you touched on Jesus being the most vulnerable person that walked earth. I think the way that Jesus modeled vulnerability, I mean, if you go back in the Gospels and look at it from that perspective, it's everywhere. I mean, I'm just like, not, there's the major moments of like the Garden of Gethsemane, and like where he allowed the
Yeah.
disciples, those really, it was the close ones, the closer ones got in on that. But I just even think about the moment, after the resurrection, where he was restoring Peter and saying, Peter, do
Mm.
you, like, how vulnerable to ask, like, Bethany, do you
Wow.
love me? Like, it's
Yeah,
such a
that's true.
such a vulnerable question. And for me, I think at the end of I believe somewhere in John 15, where Jesus says, I no longer call you servants, I call you friends. And
Mm.
part of that journey was establishing this depth and vulnerability that so many of us are missing out on the richness of relationship
Yeah.
because we choose fake. We choose
Mm.
we choose, oh, we're good, let's talk about something surfacey. And I have experienced this over and over again, whether it's relationships and deep friendships in the ministry, or even like our friends, like we just did a cruise together a couple weeks ago. Oh, just so rich when you can
Yeah.
just sit there and have honest conversations and be like, no, 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 I'm not cool with that answer right now. Let's go deeper.
Yeah.
Let's figure out what that is. And so I think it is love to allow each other to break open. And so
That's
I think
good.
us we haven't given that space, we're
Yeah.
uncomfortable with that space. We just want to patch it up and be like, oh, no, 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 you're fine, Bethany, you're okay. Like, don't feel awkward. Well, it's like, no, 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 no. What if we just sat in the nakedness together and actually allowed ourselves to embrace the awkward? Like, I'm
Yeah.
here for the awkward, man. I love them awkward
I know
moments.
you love the awkward. It's we know.
Can get past the awkward, there are treasures on the other side that you get to experience with someone's heart. That
Mhm.
there are deep treasures if you choose to stick around for the awkward, if you
Yeah.
choose to go deeper. And I think so much of, like, forget the world, so much of the church is experiencing shallowness in relationship. And
Yeah.
oftentimes we love to slap spirituality on it. We like to say, well, that's just like, we just have really spiritual relationship. Like,
Yeah.
hey, if it's spiritual, like, let us become like Jesus and be vulnerable then.
Yeah. Yeah.
Break ourselves open. I love how you said, like, I was guarded. I was trying to protect myself, because I get that. I know people that have been wounded and that have been hurt, when they did open themselves up or when they did share. And I'm telling you, friend, it is worth doing it all over again. You know
Yes.
why? Because you need the new experiences. Like, I'm
Yeah.
telling you, if you sat on that bed and you chose not to open yourself up, we would not be here today in
It's
this moment
true.
of
We wouldn't.
conversation.
I would
And
still
so,
be running. I would still be packing my bags.
and but because you choose to do it again, it's like, I don't care that I sat with a group of leaders yesterday, and I got vulnerable and it was ugly and it was messy and I felt like I wanted to run and hide afterwards. I'm going to do it again tomorrow. Why?
Yeah. Come
Because
on.
I know the fruit of it is intimacy.
Mm.
On the other side, if I keep pursuing it, the new experiences will heal the old. Like, the
That's
new
so good.
need the new experiences of vulnerability to heal the old. And so,
Yeah.
telling you, it's worth the pain, it's worth the risk, it's worth jumping off the cliff, it's worth pursuing that conversation you've longed for in your heart, but you've been afraid because you just didn't
Yeah.
know how to have it. I'm telling you, it's worth it, because on the other side, you will learn
Mm.
that you actually get to know yourself better.
Yeah.
Because
It's true.
I just, like, even Bethany, like the conversations that we've shared together, like, through those conversations, I learned how to be a better friend, because I
Yeah.
realized over the years, like, one of my, call it weaknesses or whatever, I'm like a very independent person. And
True.
I have had the greatest friendships in my life because of their pursuit. Like, I will give my friends all the credit. Like, they're the most amazing pursuers, because I'm over here like, oh, I'm good. I don't really need.
Yeah.
Realized a part of that was fear talking. And it
Yeah.
wasn't I was good. It was that I was afraid. I was
Mm.
afraid of rejection. I was
Mm,
afraid as much as
mm.
I admit it. I called it independence. It's like, actually, I wasn't good. Like, I long for relationships. I long for depth. I long, and even now where a lot of us, I think at this age, we've already kind of established who our true friends are. But that doesn't even matter because I can open up my heart in front of my church of over 500 people and feel connected to them because I have chosen to step out and actually share what's really in my heart.
Yeah, that's so good.
Not even like a one-on-one relational thing. I think when we discover who we are on the other side of vulnerability, we realize that we are actually the gift. We don't have a gift, we become
Wow.
the gift.
Yeah, no, that's so true.
All over the place here. So you
No,
can
seriously,
help.
I'm listening. I'm listening, thinking this is so helpful because I think vulnerability isn't the most common thing. So even hearing what you're saying, because you model it, I think it helps paint a picture of what it looks like. And I I go back to that moment when I was packing my bags and I was thinking, I'm not going to open my heart and how I felt. And what I felt was I had a stomach ache. I was that nervous about the idea of saying yes to an open and honest conversation of how I was feeling. I was feeling unsafe. I was feeling like I just gave my pearls. I was feeling uncomfortable with intimacy. And our conversation that night led to that, where it kind of led me back to my childhood as you asked questions. And why do you feel like that? Was there a moment when you felt unsafe when you were hugged? Is that why you don't like to be hugged? And I think sometimes we just slap on an answer, no, it's just my personality. I just don't like physical touch. And I don't think so. I actually really do believe that we were created with all the love languages. I'm sure there's one that we lean toward the most, but we were created to be lovers and to receive love.
Yes.
And I think we just shut down. And what happens is when we say no to being vulnerable, and what I mean by that is we say no to opening up our heart and sharing how we really feel, we get stuck in a level of maturity that we can't get out of until we are willing to face what we're trying to run from.
Right.
And I'm with you. I know you said that you would rather lose and be free than not and be fake. And that's the thing is God is not a fake God. Jesus was so authentic and so vulnerable and he's our example. And I just think it comes down to us as individuals deciding I'm going to live vulnerably. And I like what you just touched on because it resonates with me, like what you're saying about how you're independent and you're like I kind of like wasn't needy, but that's not true. The truth is I longed for relationships, but I was afraid to be hurt. And I wonder if I'm even in that place right now. We were talking the other day and we came off a cruise and you and Vic are the dearest friends to us, and obviously I can't wait till I see you again, but I could tell like my heart just isn't I don't feel like any emotion going home. And here my husband is on the plane like journaling about how he feels and like teary, like texting you guys, I just love you guys. And I'm like, oh, and I'm not even realizing what he's feeling. And I get home and I'm like, I remember a time when I would leave my friends and I would grieve for 3 days because I loved them so deeply and I was so desperately sad that I said goodbye. And I think what's happened, perhaps, and I'm still seeking the Lord on this, and this is again a journey, and it's so important to have a relationship with the Lord so you can go to God and say, hey, is there something going on deeper in my heart that I'm not aware of? Because I know who I am. Who I am, like at the core, is someone who's very loyal, very relational. I love people. And I'm like, here I am feeling like I'm good. And I'm thinking, is that me maturing and just being more confident and independent? Or am I guarded right now?
Wow.
And I need to be open and honest with myself and with the Lord and with those around me. And it's kind of vulnerable to admit this because then again, we are tempted to buy into the lie of I don't want to talk about this because it just comes across like I'm just messed up or like I'm not as mature as I really am. Forget that. Like we know who we are in Christ. You don't have to worry about what people think. And we're humans, we have emotions. And I think there's been experiences that have been painful and difficult and friendships that didn't work out. So I've just decided subconsciously, perhaps, I don't need anyone. I have my husband, I have my kids, and I'm good. And I'm good living on an island. Nobody come near me because I don't want to risk anymore. And I think I'm in that place, if I'm honest, where I haven't decided whether or not risking more is necessary or if I want that. But at the end of the day, we were created to know one another. And I think about Jesus when he said, "The world's going to know you belong to me by how you love each other." And what does that mean? To love
Right.
each other. What does that look like to love each other? Does that mean we send each other nice texts? We give each other a nice $30 gift card on our birthday? We give in the offering when we take an offering for the orphans? Okay, I love people. Or does that mean that we're going to fight for each other? Does that mean that we're willing to get dirty for each other, being honest and risking a wrong response? And if I'm vulnerable and you come back and respond the opposite of how I want you to respond, am I going to still fight for you? Or am I going to give up on you and say, forget you? I'm not going to be your friend. Like, what does it look like to love people? How are we going to be recognized as followers of Jesus by how we love people? Because I see people in the world that are really kind and they don't know the Lord. And to me, like, just from the naked eye, you seem like you love people, but I think it's deeper. I think what Jesus meant when he said, the world's going to know you're my followers by how you treat each other and how you love each other is deeper than just nice acts. I think it's a condition of the heart. I think you're right. I think it's vulnerability. A big piece of it is we know each other. We know where we've come from. We know the addictions that have been broken off. We know the insecurities that we've had. We know what we're believing for and where we're at and jumping off the cliff and saying yes to God and what that looks like because we're in each other's lives and it's knitted us together in such an intimate way. And I just love this conversation because I think it's a challenging conversation. Are you vulnerable? Are you willing to be vulnerable? And if not, why? Where is the pain? Where do you need healing? We were called and created to be vulnerable and to model it well, to walk in it and to model it well. And like what you said, be the gift to other people. And you've been such a gift to me. And the fact that you didn't give up, you haven't given up on me. And I want to ask, there was a moment where you came to see us. We were visiting last summer and we were there for a couple weeks and we didn't really, that was still when we were kind of figuring out like how deep we were. And you just showed up at our house that we were renting and you just poured out your heart. And I remember feeling so close to you, just like what you said on that bed when I packed my bags, how you're like, I feel so much closer to you because you shared your heart. I felt so much closer to you after you just broke down in tears sharing what you were walking through. And it went from feeling, I felt like I had all these sort of feelings and all of a sudden the feelings were washed away because of this moment where we were just breaking our hearts open to each other. So go back to that moment and I think just share whatever you want to share, honestly. But I just really feel that you have so much to say in regards to practical tips of how to begin the journey of vulnerability for those who haven't yet started to practice it, what to expect in their emotions, how to guard their heart while they're continuing to step out, and just like that time, that moment with us, and what made you decide to come and share your heart and what you learned from that and just the tips that you can share.
Yeah, so good. Well, I have resolved in my heart if a conversation feels too hard to have, then it should be had.
That's really good. Write it down.
I have just I am uncomfortable with comfort. You know this about me, Bethany.
I do.
To discomfort because I find that discomfort is the way to grow. And when it
Mm.
comes to relationships in my life, I think relationships are good. Your relationships are a good indicator of who you are.
Oh,
And think that for me, you're absolutely right. The Lord, man, we can be so good with the Lord, but if we have not learned relationships with people, to me, that is an indicator of my maturity. People
Mm,
are indicator of my maturity with the Lord.
so
And
good.
so people saying this all the time, like, me and God, we're cool. I just don't do the whole church thing. I'm like, let's talk about that because
That's when Anastasia's gonna come after you. Ah, let's have coffee.
yeah, bringing it back to that conversation, I realized, oh, I can just open up my heart. Here's the thing about opening up our heart. We think that's painful. Okay. What's painful is that you get to live with a closed heart and never experience what joy in relationship feels like. It's
Yeah.
actually painful to keep a wall up. It's very heavy. It
Mm,
starts to feel very heavy because you got to keep building the wall. Like you
yeah.
got to get so creative to keep rejecting intimacy in your life. And so I think that's how people get numb. They turn off the valves of their heart. They stop feeling. They you think you turn the valve off to pain, but you actually not only do you stop feeling pain, you stop feeling joy. You stop
Yeah.
feeling all
You're
the
right.
rest of the
Yeah.
emotions.
Life.
Life, 100%. And so I think back in the day, when I thought about, yeah, I'm going to be vulnerable, I'm going to pursue relationships, I would do it in very safe spaces with people that I was like, for sure, we're going to be lifers. But for people that I wasn't fully convinced, like, oh, they can come and go, it felt almost like, it's not worth it. But I
Yeah.
that it doesn't matter whether these relationships are going to stick around or not. I want to be again, I want to bring the gift of being fully me. And so I think, in choosing to have that, like, let's just say for example that conversation, I remember thinking about how much um, vulnerability breaks assumption, and how when
So
you open
good.
up heart and you come to someone and you share how you feel. You don't have to share what they did wrong. You don't have to go after them. You don't have to confront them. You just share how you feel. And
That's
you just
good.
open heart and take ownership of your heart and bringing your heart. And I'm telling you what, it'll dismantle assumptions, it'll dismantle the lies, it'll just build this instant bridge of intimacy. I mean, I had a conversation like this yesterday where I was like, man, assumptions are the devil.
Yeah.
Because
So
it's
good.
so easy. There are so many hooks that we can grab onto with assumption and
Yeah.
just resolve in our hearts like this is how it's going to be. But instead, I think if you go after it in faith, really, I think every conversation we have is that's hard is a conversation of faith. But when we bring our heart, like Bethany, I've come to share my heart. I haven't come to tell you what you did wrong. I've
Yeah.
actually to open myself up and say, hey, this is how I felt. Now,
Yeah.
I
That's
don't know,
really good.
you were probably not trying to make me feel that way, but this is how I felt. And I just want to be honest and share how I felt. And then
Excellent.
and then the rest is I think most of the time we underestimate the value of sharing our feelings. A lot of a lot of a lot of people that didn't grow up sharing, a lot of us actually don't know how to um, share emotions in a healthy way. Like we're really good about over spiritualizing,
Yeah.
and we're really good about numbing, but we're
Yeah.
not good about saying, wow, that actually that hurt my heart. Like that pricked
Yeah.
my. And I think you're right. It does sound weak, but I would rather be weak and real than hard and fake. And so
Yeah. Totally.
I I just choose to over and over again have the hard conversations, have the conversations that are going to lead. I think even with my husband, I think there are some conversations that I have had to have courage to have. And this is
Yeah.
my, like, I love him. Like we're in this together for life. And there have been times where the Lord has brought something up and I'm like, "Ooh, this is going to be kind of uncomfortable to go after
Right.
for whatever area it is. And I feel like the best approach, girl, the best approach is not to go after them, is to open your heart and share what's inside of you.
Excellent.
Then you're not putting blame on anyone. This is just practical tools, guys.
Yeah.
Like
Excellent. That's what we need.
anyone. But if you've been wounded in a relationship and you care about that relationship, you pursue the conversation and say, hey, I don't know what happened. I don't want to make assumptions of why this happened, but this is how I have felt.
Excellent.
And you're giving someone permission to look into your heart.
Mm,
Thinking it about them instead of projecting it on them. And so I think
yeah.
there's a lot of unhealthy confrontation that people have had, and that's why relationships get broken. But when
Yeah.
we get vulnerable and actually open ourselves up, it's different. It
Yeah.
hits different,
Yeah.
and we can walk away. I said the best indicator when you've had a vulnerable conversation is when you walk away feeling a little naked. Then you must have had a good
Build
conversation.
it, hey. No, it's so good. Everything you're saying is so helpful and such practical tips, and it's clear just listening to you and even just growing in vulnerability myself, because I know that's actually who I really, really am naturally anyways. Um but just vulnerability will lead you to freedom. It just sets you free. Vulnerability pulls out the stuff that is not supposed to fester and the stuff that'll cause like toxicity to happen in your soul. And it gives you permission just to be free. And I love what you're saying about when you come to someone and you choose to be vulnerable, that you're not pointing fingers at them, but you are inviting them to look into your heart. I think we do that so often, is we come to have a conversation and to let them know what they did wrong. And I think one of the reasons actually we do that is because we're afraid to be open about how we really feel, and we're afraid to come across weak or sensitive. And I don't know about you, but for me, conversations usually do not go well if I'm coming with fingers pointed at them, which this kind of reminds me of something cheesy. Someone said one time, they're like, don't talk to someone like this, talk to someone like this. And it's like, okay,
Hey,
so even though it's cheesy, it actually is really good. It's just sometimes we can, have that Christianese vibe. It's like we're not about that. But I love what you're saying is I'm not gonna live fake. I'm gonna live real, and I'm gonna pay the price to do that. And so whoever's listening, what does it look like for you to live real and to live vulnerably? What does that look like? Are there conversations that you need to have that's gonna help you grow in vulnerability? It's going to help you be more and more free, and it's going to help you have rich relationships. Who are those people? Are there conversations you need to have? Do you need to be vulnerable with the Lord and go to God and say, God, would you help me? And I find prayer is such a weapon. Intimacy with the Lord is such a weapon, to sit with Him and say, God, I'm afraid. We bring our concerns to him. I'm afraid of rejection. I'm afraid to have this conversation. I feel like I'm going to throw up. This might be a little TMI, but my stomach gets a little rumbly when I get nervous when I'm about to have a conversation. I'm like, I think I need to use the restroom before I have this conversation. But it's like, whatever has to happen, like whatever has to be released, if you know what I'm saying, to get to that place where you do have freedom and where your heart is just open, and you've just decided, no matter what I have to walk through, no matter what kind of responses I have to endure, this isn't for anyone else. This
yeah,
is for me. This
yeah,
is for my freedom. This is so that I can walk in full authenticity and full openness. And like what you're saying, bring that gift to others. And so understand that when we live vulnerably and model it well, walking in love, and you do it so well, friend, where you're just gracious and you're kind. We're not supposed to be harsh. Love is patient. Love is kind.
yeah.
But I believe love is honest, and love is vulnerable, and love is real. And so we're called to be like that. We're called to be a light in the world from a place of living vulnerably. Dang, so
Absolutely.
epic. What a great conversation.
So good, friend. I know we like the idea of being vulnerable. I think, my friends, some of us need to risk it this week. Some of
Yeah.
us need to reach out and you know who you're supposed to have that conversation with. And I'm telling you, do it.
Yep.
Do it, afraid.
Yes. Yes, I love that. Do it afraid. And we're always like, we never arrive at this place where we have no nerves. We live on earth, we're humans, we're going to have emotions and nerves. But the more we practice this, the more we're going to build new habits and become who we were created to be. And it's so good. It's so important. The tips that you shared are so helpful. And I hope whoever's listening, you got a lot out of this and you have a blessed week. I love you, friend. Thanks for chatting with me. I'll talk to you later.
Bye.
Bye.